Traditionally, lager making is a slow process, but I'm going to show you how you can make a proper crispy boy in under 2 weeks. What's up guys, it's Zach here from Homebrew. Welcome back to another grain to glass video. This video centers around something that I actually haven't done before. It pains me to say it, but I don't really drink a great deal of lager and therefore I haven't really brewed any. In all honesty, I've never brewed a proper lager. The only lagers I've brewed have been pseudo lagers using things like Fike yeast and Lallemand Nova lager, which have been good beers, but they're not proper lagers because I haven't used a proper lager yeast. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a proper lager yeast, brew a proper lager. It should be sort of German Pilsnery, that style of beer, but I'm not getting too fussy about that. I just want to brew what I would class as a proper pub crispy boy. We're going to do that and we're going to pressure ferment it, see if we can speed things up a bit and see how we get on. First off, let's talk about the water. For this beer, what I want is a fairly sparse mineral content in terms of my water profile. Now, I don't have access to RO water or anything like that. I use Tesco Ashbeck, so I'm just going to stick with that exactly as it is. As always, I've linked the water profile for that above. It's fairly low in all of the minerals. Obviously, I can't remove minerals, so I'm going to have to use it exactly as it is. The only other water addition I'm going to add is some lactic acid just to balance that pH and make sure that we're in the right range. But other than that, it's mega simple. So what we'll do then next is we'll talk about the actual recipe and then we'll have a look at the mash. Right, the recipe itself then. I've not got too tied up in what type of lager this is. It's probably leaning more towards a sort of German Pilsner. But what I'm actually aiming for here is just to brew the kind of beer that your mates could sit, have a few in the garden with and go, do you know what mate, that's a damn good lager. Whether or not they're craft beer drinkers, whether they drink ales or whatever, just one of those nice beers that you can sip away at in the sun without it being overly complicated. So what I've done is I've gone for a fairly typical sort of Pilsnery recipe. I've got 80% Pilsner malt. I've then gone for 15% Vienna malt, which should just add a little bit of colour and a little bit more flavour to it. And then I finished that off with 5% of Carapils. What that will do is hopefully give it a better head retention, give it that nice tight white head that we all associate with a proper crispy boy. As I say, mega simple. What I'm shooting for is an OG of 1.044. So I'm hoping for somewhere in the 4.5 to 5% region. So it should be nice and crisp, nice easy drinking, the sort of thing you can put away a fair few pints of. With regards to the mash temperature, I've come down to 64 degrees. That should just make it ever so slightly drier, ever so slightly more refreshing and just fit nicely with that, what everyone expects of a lager really. As you can see from that footage there, the mash went really well on this. It was looking quite clear while I was mashing it. The colour looks absolutely lovely. It's going to look good in the glass, I think. On completion of the mash then, I've raised the temperature up to 75 degrees C and let it sit there for 10 minutes for a mash out step just to kill any conversion. Once that was done, I've sparged in the usual way, as you can see, jug with water over the top. On completion of that, I bagged up all of the grains, given them to the man with the chickens, and started my sort of cleanup process. I'll do the malt pipe, everything else. Whilst that's ongoing, I will be heating up towards boil temperature just to speed things up. But anyway, let's come back at the boil and we'll have a look at that. As you can see, we are now at a nice steady rolling boil. This is a 60-minute boil, and in terms of hops, it's fairly simple. I'm only using one style of hop. I'm using Lubelski, which is a Polish version of Sarts, I've been led to believe. The intention was to use traditional Sarts, but I actually couldn't get hold of any. And I saw this and I thought, why not give it a go? They smell phenomenal. They smell like Sarts, basically, so I'm not anticipating any problems. But in terms of the hop schedule, at 60 minutes, I've got 60 grams going in. At 15 minutes, I've got another 30 grams going in. And then finally, with 5 minutes left of the boil, I'm going to add another 30 grams of Lubelski. The only other thing going into the boil is yeast nutrient and some Protafloc tablet just to help drop all of that rubbish out and get as clear a beer as I can get right at the end. Anyway, let's get this transferred and then we'll have a chat about yeast and fermentation. Transfer's all gone smoothly. It's in the fermenter now, ready to go. Let's quickly talk about yeast before we get into the fermentation. I've used Diamond Lager for this one. I put 2 packets in. I was originally going to use Saf Lager 3470 because I've been led to believe that works really well under pressure, which is what I plan to do. I couldn't get hold of it. Diamond Lager, I've read, is also pretty good under pressure. So that's what we've gone for. As I say, 2 packets of that straight into the wort ready to ferment. Now, I've not really done much pressure fermenting, so I'll explain the way I've done it, but if you do it differently, or if you've got any hints, tips, or just other things to try, please feel free, let me know in the comments, because I'll say this is the first time I've done it. But what I've done is I've pitched the yeast, and I've immediately pressurized that fermenter to 12 psi, which is the pressure I'm going to leave it at for the whole fermentation. Hopefully it works nicely. My fermentation temperature, because I'm fermenting under pressure, what that means is that I can ferment a lager yeast which would normally ferment at cooler temperatures, i.e. around sort of 12, 14 degrees. I can ferment them at ale temperatures. So I'm going to ferment this at 20 degrees C, and that pressure should stop any off flavors developing or anything like that, and it should speed up the fermentation. So essentially, I can get a lager fermented out with no off flavors. I'm expecting it within 4-5 days maybe. The intention with this beer is to add ALDC, which is what I'm going to add in a minute. And then finally, I will use Browsol for finings just to get this clearer faster, because I want to drink this as soon as possible, really. But anyway, let's catch up further down the line. Right, fermentation is complete and it went as expected. Within a couple of days, I think 3-4 days, I was down at final gravity. However, I've left it for a full, I think I did 6 days before I started the cold crash, just to make sure it was well and truly done. In terms of diacetyl, I put ALDC in, so I shouldn't need to worry about that at all. However, if I didn't, I might have left it a little bit longer, another couple of days at those temperatures, ale temperatures, just to make sure that there's no diacetyl in there, but not anticipating any problems with it whatsoever. So as I say, it got to about day 6, day 7, I've started the cold crash, left it for a couple of days at the cooler temperature before transferring it into a keg. As I transferred it into the keg, I've added some Browsol finings just to help clear it up so I can get it drinking even faster. But yeah, let's come back when this beer's in the glass. Right, the final product then. Before I get too far, I have to say I'm really impressed with this. This has only been in the keg 9 days, so it's probably maybe 2.5, getting on for 3 weeks since this was actually brewed, and it looks phenomenal. It is absolutely crystal clear, which I have no doubt was down to the Browsol, because I haven't lagered this anywhere near long enough for a lager. Realistically, normally you spend 4 weeks upwards at least in the keg, bare minimum. But that looks beautiful. The only major criticism I've got of this beer at the moment is the head retention is terrible on it, so I need to maybe have a rethink of my process, have a look at that. I'm not entirely sure why. The carapils should have helped with that. It does have a nice head when it comes out, it just disappears very, very quickly. But it doesn't take away from the fact that this is really quite a nice beer, especially given how short of a time it's been in there. So I'm not going to go nuts trying to explain to you what this tastes and smells like, because I'm not very good at it generally. And with a lager, I find that even harder. What I would say is this smells like a lager. And it smells like a good one. Sort of thing, if you stuck your nose in it at the bar, you'd think, that smells decent. In terms of flavour, oh, that's nice. It has got, again, that classic lager, sat in the beer garden, drinking in the sunshine, German Pilsnery flavour. It's lovely. I'm amazed that this has been made in less than 3 weeks, genuinely. I didn't think it would work. It's why I've normally strayed away from brewing too many lagers. It just takes a bit much time for me, and it's not a beer style I generally drink. But this, in under 3 weeks, I would happily brew that again. I don't think I changed too much in it for me. It's simple, it's tasty. Those Lubelski hops have come through, or not come through, it's not a hoppy beer, but they taste beautiful. I wouldn't have known it wasn't Sarts in there. It could probably do with slightly more carbonation. I might turn the gas up ever so slightly on it. But that is one of those beers you could give it to your mate who knows nothing about craft beer, is not really interested in lager at all, and generally drinks macro lagers at the bar, and they would enjoy that. They'd be happy drinking that. Equally, you could give it to one of your craft beer mates, and I reckon they'd enjoy it as well. It's come out at 4.9%, which is perfectly sessionable in my opinion, and I have no doubt that isn't going to last too long in the keg. As I say, I am genuinely impressed by that. Is it the best lager in the world? No. Is it a proper Czech lager with double decoction? No. But is it the sort of beer you want to keep drinking? Yeah, and it was fairly cheap to make. So feel free to have a go at that one yourself. Again, feel free to check out any of my other videos out there. But for me, with the pressure fermentation, it was a new one for me. So if you've got any tips, tricks, or things you do differently to me in the comments, please do let me know. I'll have a read and maybe try some of them out. Cheers.